Okay, it's 6:02. I guess we're time to get started. Call this meeting of the Short-Term Rental Advisory Committee to order. And we're all in attendance. And today, our agenda is to review the draft that we're cobbling together. And just, we don't have to get it perfect. We just have to get it close enough to know, so that Eric and Maura know what it is we're doing, Town Council and Associate Town Council, and they will craft it. Tom has also offered to cobble together our thoughts if we would like to have him do that as an interim step before progressing it to Town Council's office. And I'd like to hear your thoughts on if we should go that way or go directly with the Town Council. It might be more coherent if Tom takes a shot at it first, because that way, you know, we can look at it again and see if it does represent what we agreed to. You still up for that?
Yeah, I am. Appreciate that.
Okay.
Yeah.
So, I think we agreed that we were going to keep the draft that was made by Town Council last year, but add some things. Is there anything in the existing bylaw that people feel like should maybe not be in there? Is there anything that needs to come out? Because we didn't really talk about that. Does everyone have a copy or have?
I don't have a copy with me. Thank you.
Yeah.
Well, Doug, in my issues list, you know, I raised certain maybe words that should come out, but, you know, if you meant whole sections to come out.
Well, just anything that, if there's a particular word or two, yeah, we can just strike a line through those, but in the definitions, there's nothing wrong with the definition
This
of,
completely?
what is it?
This was the draft that was made by me, actually, after we heard the lady from Plymouth.
No, we don't have to throw it out. We can review that and see if it's really got everything in it. Do you think that that has everything that's in here also?
I haven't looked at it from that point of view.
I wasn't 100% sure if that was inclusive of everything that's in here.
I understood from the last time, our last discussion, that we, from the 2024 purpose, we were going to strike further reduction of the stock of affordable year-round rentals as part of our purpose, because so far the information that we've learned is that they're not really connected,
Yeah.
these two ideas.
Mm-hmm. That's true. You're right about that.
I agree with that.
Yep.
I'm not sure I agree. I think that the experience so far isn't wrong in either place we've heard from, and it is something that we want to achieve, so it's not untrue for a purpose.
Well, I guess that's true as well. And
I
it
just
doesn't-
think it's a purpose and intent we really have no realistic chances of achieving, and the data or the information the committee has before it is that we're not going to achieve that. So I just think it's misleading to the town if we do that. And Doug, it also harks back to the discussion at the select board. I forget who kept pushing the point, but it was one of the select board members made that part of our intent, and she really was very, very focused on doing that.
Mm-hmm.
And I think we've looked at it, and it's a laudable goal. We have another affordable housing committee that's looking at that. And I just think linking it here is not a good idea.
I guess it's true that it's not really accurate to say that it's going to inhibit further reduction of the stock of affordable year-round housing, because we're not really preventing anything.
But it is true that it's our purpose. One
No,
among
but
many others, but it is a purpose.
But maybe
It
not
does
the
no
purpose.
harm. We'll keep it for a while. and
Be-
go on.
because it's,
Been over this.
I think it's misleading to the town of what we're trying to do, and, and also, Doug, as to your point, yeah, I just feel, given the information the committee has, that it's not an achievable purpose, and, you know, I think, Doug, as far as a report or comments when this goes to the select board of the town, you know, we all feel strongly on reducing the, further reducing the affordable housing stock. But, you know, it's just not achievable by us.
We don't know that. That's an assumption that I don't share.
I understand, Charlie. We're just expressing differing views. And
We are.
I think that by putting that in there in the purpose section, that would lead the public at large to think that, number one, there is a correlation between short-term rentals and affordable housing stock, which the information we have is there isn't. And that the intent of this law or an effect of this bylaw would be that we are going to, in fact, protect it, which we don't. You know, I think one of the things that is limiting us a little bit, even though there's been a lot of work done on this, is we don't have those studies that Provincetown did that really point to what is this going to do in Falmouth. We're kind of relying on the experiences of other towns. Plymouth really, based on what they said, didn't really do a lot of studies. They kind of enacted it based on what they were seeing and what they wanted to achieve. I think I would feel a lot better if we had a conclusive study about Falmouth, but if I had to pick one of the two, I think our housing stock, even though it's much larger, is more reflective of the situation in Provincetown because of the seasonal housing than it is in Plymouth, which has a lot more year-round housing. So I think, and going into this, I think that was really a goal that I had in the back of my mind, but I just, at this moment, I don't see that the bylaw that we're going to create is going to have any impact on that.
But I just say, and then I'll drop it, you know, if there's no one else who wants to keep it, that, yes, we heard from two people, and they were quite persuasive with their data and so forth, but I've also read what other towns and cities are doing, and this is included in the purpose of many of them. So many people are hoping that this is an outcome. We're not going to be graded on whether or not this is achieved. If we were all being graded on the purpose statements of the bylaws we have, we might be in difficulty.
Liz?
I think maybe my comment is more specifically about the use of the word affordable, which has its own actual definition, right? And so I think one possible is to think about that we're inhibiting the reduction of the stock of year-round rentals generally. Not necessarily are they meeting that affordable definition, right, which we know
That's a good point.
has a more specific, that's a narrower thing than if we strike the word affordable. There's a range of possibilities for year-round rentals.
I could go with that. That's really
Okay.
good.
Strike affordable. Yes, Kara?
I was just going to say that this year, more than any, we've seen an increase in our year-round rental inventory. And a lot of them are sitting because of pricing or whether or not somebody can qualify for. So it's not, we're seeing more and more year-round rental inventory, but it's not
Nobody can afford to use.
It's not necessarily because we have less short-term rentals or anything like that. You know, affordable, you're right, is a loose term, because we do have them, they're just not affordable. And has nothing to do with the short-term rentals.
Yeah. And honestly, even our affordable units are becoming unaffordable because the average median income has become so
Yeah,
high
right.
that
Yeah.
the whole system is skewed.
We are finding with our short-term rentals that convert for the winter months, from October to May, that's very helpful to people because it's a lot less expensive or more affordable for them to rent monthly. It's furnished. And from October to May, they have 8 months where they're paying they have time to figure out what they're doing.
Yeah,
And we probably had, 50 of those this year.
wow. Interesting. So maybe we just strike the word affordable and leave the other
What's
language?
that?
All right, okay.
That would argue for setting a particular time of the year when short-term rentals are really acceptable and a time of year when they're not. We ought to hold on to that.
Except that a lot of people get them, throughout the year. People want to come and visit family. The short-term
Christmas
rentals are
time,
convenient thing. They come in the holidays, they come at all kinds of times a year for family weddings and, different occasions.
A lot of them do, they'll close down for the, they'll shut down for the winter, just depending.
Right. Okay, and the definitions?
Doug, I'm sorry. In my issues list, I identified two other things I wanted to raise.
Okay,
The current draft says to preserve longstanding economic opportunities for both year-round and seasonal rentals. As I thought about it, I started to get really uncomfortable with that language because it goes back to that whatever longstanding economic interests there are, and I understand that, really have not been, are not legal now. We're creating a bylaw that will legitimize them, but I think, and here, frankly, I put my litigation hat on. If the town ever has to defend someone saying, well, I have a right to this or that isn't in the bylaw, and you're ruining my long-term economic interest, they're going to point this, and I think it'll come back to bite us. So I would raise for the committee striking that language.
these requirements intend to protect the ability of homeowners to rent their property and preserve the long-standing economic opportunities for both year-round and seasonal residents.
It's our grandfathering provision, really.
Sort of, it recognizes that it's been
But it's
something
there.
that's been going on.
But we're, modifying it, with this document. We're not, whole-scale preserving long-standing economic interests, where in the rest of the document, particularly, we'll discuss it later, I think we've agreed on moving the limit of one owner to three. The vast majority of what's going on now will be permitted, except, obviously corporations in a few areas, will be permitted, but, subject to regulation. And I just think to allow anyone to argue when they don't like a piece of our regulation to say you're harming my long-term economic interests, I think it could well come back to bite us. That's my thinking.
I agree with Tom. I think we might be better off straightforwardly grandfathering and tie it to registration within some certain period.
Well, I'm not saying let's grandfather, we're limiting corporations, we're, lots of things where only certain kinds of LLCs we're allowing, and, that's not what I'm saying at all, Charlotte.
So then maybe it would just say, these requirements intend to protect the ability of homeowners to rent their property? And just period?
Yeah. Well, I thought, maybe in a reasonable manner.
Could we step back for a minute from wordsmithing and think about the thing itself? I think we might be better off grandfathering and requiring existing ones to get licensed within a certain period for a certain period. And in that way, we're having the effect of limiting, then we could do a limit on the number of new ones in any neighborhood. So we've got the ones, we already know, we've agreed among ourselves, I believe, I could be wrong, that we don't really want to upset anybody's apple cart here, but we do want to look to the future and change it. So that would really argue for grandfathering what's there, running it through a licensing routine so that we know where it is, give it an end date, maybe with the current ownership, and allow for a limited number of new ones in a neighborhood, and do it by special permit, so that you know how many are there.
Well, I thought we discussed that at the last meeting, and we
Yeah.
said we weren't going to go with the
We
zoning.
voted that we wouldn't go in that direction.
Yeah, but I think I've thought a lot about it since then, and I think we're making a mistake, because it can be in both places, many things are. So the detailed regulations are with the health department to supervise and license and do all that, but the definition of short-term rental is added to the other definitions that are already in the zoning book, so it's clear that it's not there somehow as multifamily or home-based business or any of the others that you could shoehorn it into. It's defined in the same place, clearly, and described, and then regulated. I think it'd be cleaner. It'd be easier to enforce,
These
and then
are,
we would grandfather.
So,
there's a couple of big new ideas that I thought we were past, but
Yeah, I'm
What do
kind
you-
of hoping not.
what do you think of that?
yeah, I mean, Charlotte, I understand coming in, that's what you wanted, you articulated. I think everything I just heard, I think we've considered. I think to make progress, we should accept our votes. Like, I really wanted something different, eliminate corporations. It's clear I've lost that vote, I'm sort of moving on from that. But I just want to keep the ball rolling, and I would prefer not to revisit this.
What do others think?
I don't feel like we need to revisit it.
I also, Charlotte, do not feel that we need to revisit. I think that the based on our discussion last time, adding the layer of a special permit is a layer that doesn't seem feasible.
Remember, we didn't add that layer because we thought we would be inundated. But what we've learned from Plymouth and Provincetown, if it would apply to us, is that no, they're not inundated.
Well, we're not either.
Or, right, we wouldn't be either. So where's the burden?
But we're already, well, the burden is the regulatory process and the double layer of administration.
It would depend on why you would come for a special permit. It would just be for new ones.
It would, but
So it puts the brakes on it.
I think I would be uncomfortable going down that road with the purpose of having some arbitrary number, again, without any sort of concrete study from some outside organization saying, what is the number? What is the density? What, based on the neighborhood? And I think that's kind of beyond where we are. I think going back to the original question, the purpose of what we're trying to do is to balance a series of interests. And one of those interests is we are considering the ability of people to rent their property on a short-term basis. And that's something we have considered at every meeting. So I think we could clean up some language in there to try to, protect us a little bit. But I think that's certainly a consideration that we've made, that we want to have this process in place. And we've considered the advantage that some families and some homeowners have of providing short-term rentals to offset their expenses in owning a home.
yeah,
Can I just ask a question?
yeah.
So I would agree that the lack of data makes it very difficult for us to make some, serious decisions. I don't know if there are ways that we can, is it possible, down the road to revisit something like that once we pass, a set of bylaws that right now we don't really have much of anything?
Well, the planning board could always introduce a zoning change to add, some more regulation to it, a separate
I'm just saying maybe
matter.
down the road when we have more information and we see how the initial bylaws that maybe we create here, how they're working.
Well, Provincetown did do that study, and they used that college report to get started. But we've also been making some progress in identifying, when we first got started with this, I thought maybe we had a couple of thousand and maybe more, so I was a little nervous about what the number would be. But Scott has been sending out letters to the prospective owners, and we found out that it's, what, 670, I think?
Second notice.
Yeah, please, or grab one of these mics.
We're somewhere close to 800 for applications, but that's 500 people saying they're not doing it or ignoring it. We haven't scrubbed the internet and have a company come out and find truly the number. I would say we're probably very light. I mean, we were 300 when we did it voluntary. We sent out a notice and we got to 800. Does that mean we only have 800? I don't know. I would say we have over 1,000.
Okay.
I'd say we probably have closer to 15. I mean, we might have, not everybody's going to comply, right? So, who knows who complied? We're definitely not going to be able to say, well, you didn't respond twice, we're now going to do some sort of action after the fact, right? We're just trying to see how many people we can get to comply passively by just saying, hey, please, can you register? So we haven't gone to the point where we've scrubbed the internet, hired a company, to come out and say that these are definitely rental, then do it. And then when you get non-compliance, what do? Let's say 1,000 people respond and you have 1,800 according to this company. How are you going to get the other 800 to comply?
Yeah.
Right?
How are you finding these now?
All we did so far was take the state tax list. And in January, sent them a letter, nicely worded, saying, hey, there's a bylaw from 1975, and you should be complying with it, and this is how you do it. And we got several hundred that said we don't do it anymore, of that 1,588 that were on the list. We took off the ones that were already doing it, and we ended up going from like a 380 short-term rentals to 800 or so, but then, not short-term, sorry, jet rentals completely.
Yeah.
Then you take out the short-term, I think you've done that already, I think take the short-term. And that number's probably 600 or 580 or something like that. And that's probably a third to a half of people that might be, I'm not sure, until you really hammer down the actual number. I'm sure it's probably over 1,000.
That would make sense, because if
Yeah.
Provincetown feels pretty confident that it's in the 600s, and our town is much larger.
What's their house total number of units?
643 or something like that?
No, how many houses they have?
Total houses. I thought it was about half of Falmouth, but I don't remember what the number was.
All right, so we're 22,000.
Right.
So 10 or 11,000, and they're getting 600. And they're, yeah, so I don't know.
That makes sense.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any luck with the less expensive internet scrubbing companies? I know you've been looking into, or I don't know if you have, or Mr.
I haven't actively looked at the companies. Mike was doing that previously.
Okay.
I think once Jed helps me find an assistant, I think that's free me up to do a little, maybe start actually interviewing these companies for it.
Yeah.
I think we wanted to go this year to see what we could get just without spending any money. We did fairly decent.
I got another question for you, if I could. In our first bylaw, we kept mentioning, from the working group,
Yep.
we kept mentioning Board of Health will promulgate these rules and regulations. Do you think we can substitute Health Department rather than Board of Health, seeing as how they've chosen that they don't? really-
Well, I mean, we get our authority from the Board of Health, right? So I guess it might be a better question for Eric of whether it should be considered the Board of Health or the Health Department
Right.
in your bylaw. Normally, I think a lot of them say Board of Health, and then we become the de facto daily sort of.
That's something we're going to have to work out on.
It's a general bylaw, assuming that this is a general bylaw. You'll have the ability to designate somebody for enforcement. So that could be the health inspector, could be the building inspector, depending on what it is that, you want done. There's not a requirement. We can probably be somewhat flexible about that. I think maybe that's something that I'd like to talk about with Maura, who has more specific bylaw drafting expertise than I do. I'm sure she would make a suggestion.
As I noticed in the Plymouth bylaw, they cite the authority specifically consistent with Mass General Law 105 CMR 410 and including supplements to Mass General Law 310 CMR 15
Wait, where, I'm just looking at this right now. Where are you looking?
The authority.
authority.
You're talking about just the authority. Ours is fairly general. For example, when they're talking about SDR, Massachusetts Session Laws of 2018, those Session Law Acts of 2018 were part of what was then incorporated into MGL 64G Section 14, right? Though there's actually other amendments. My feeling is that it's better to be general than specifically. We have the authority. It's enacted. We have both under Home Rule Authority and the 64G Section 14 authority. I don't think that it's necessary to also explain that we have authority under the CMR. If that's something that you folks want, I can certainly bring that up with Maura and get her opinion.
I only thought that I wanted it because I thought more is better, you know, and it seemed like a really specific reference that made it clear that the authority does exist. But in this, at the bottom of it, it says, it mentions that the Board of Health, Title V Board of Health for the town as well. But I guess maybe, well, we'll leave it to you to figure out what the wording should be on the authority.
Okay, I'll talk with, I just want to clarify, is this something where at the end of this, you're going to write something up and send it to me?
Yes.
Or is this, so
Yes.
I'm not supposed to be noting all this down right now?
I'm noting it down.
Thank you.
But if you back me up, that's great. So Doug, you know, sorry to be picky as a lawyer, but a lot of times adding more is a really bad idea.
Yeah.
And, you know, Town Council drafted the Home Rule Authority, the language that's in there. And I assume Moore did it with a lot of thought. And so we'll raise it for her, but, you know, I think Eric just articulated really well what the thinking was in just citing the MGL 64G, Section 14.
Yeah, okay. Maybe that is a better idea. Maybe we'll scratch this out. Others agree?
Yeah?
Keeping the simpler authority.
Yeah, the one that's in the original short-term rentals.
That's up to the lawyers, not up to us.
Right.
Doug, so, sorry, one other word in the purpose of intent.
Okay.
It's in the issues section, but we go down and say, and this is in the existing draft, to prevent the corporate commercialization of homeownership for use in short-term rentals. And as I've thought about it, I think I've conceptualized it that we want to prevent further commercialization of any type, whether it's corporate or otherwise. So, for example, I think, you know, one of the concerns in my mind are just homeowners who are commercializing their property. And so I thought the word corporate is unnecessarily restrictive, and just to drop that word. So it'd be to prevent the commercialization of home ownership for use in short-term rentals.
Conditions that cause or create a nuisance, undermine the
It's right here.
corporate commercialization. The language in the original, he's suggested maybe it should just say prevent the
The
commercialization.
commercialization.
No, I hate to leave that out.
I think you could argue that owning 3 units would be a form of commercialization, so, and we're allowing that. I think it's the corporate aspect of it, that fear that Provincetown, who is operating under the premise of a study that was produced by them, that was an identified fear in that study of corporate commercialization that other communities outside of Massachusetts and Cape Cod have experienced, where corporate entity comes in, they buy up, a lot of properties and have a corporate type of short-term rental business operating. I think that is part of what our purpose is. I think that's a fear that we realized since our second meeting. So I think it is appropriate to keep corporate. We're letting you, but, it's letting you, through the bylaw, own 3 properties. They could be 3 properties right next to each other in a neighborhood that, depending on the size of it, you could consider that commercialization. So I think.
Throw it 3 in a row, you can put up
Yeah.
hotels, right?
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it is.
If the language is inclusive enough, because it's corporate commercialization of home ownership. And what I'm picturing is that gigantic building that's going up, that's nearly complete on Main Street, the 2 buildings. That owner wanted that to be a hotel, and he was prevented from doing what he originally wanted, and he has built these units instead. It'd be very easy to turn that into 2 buildings of short-term rentals.
But they're, it's built as a 40B, so it can't be subsidized. So that's in our language too.
But what about the ones that are market rate?
I think the whole project falls into that same category just by the fact that the entirety of it is rentals and it's all on our subsidized housing inventory. So I don't think they could get away with that.
But I
Although
think,
that was a fear.
Yeah.
Well, Tom was waiting again, so just let's hear from Tom and then
I
we'll.
might cut things off. Jim, would it help or help others if maybe we said to prevent the corporate and other commercialization?
Yes.
I think I like that better. I just think, yeah.
I'd be okay with that.
Yeah.
Okay. Corporate and other. Okay, Liz, and were you still waiting to speak? Or-
oh, well, I interpreted your comment about I think you were focused on the word home ownership there, Charlotte. Right, and so are we, it is also the intent of this bylaw to prevent the corporate and other commercialization of, and I don't know if home ownership is the right word in that spot.
Yeah, maybe it's home
Of
ownership
housing-
and rental
of
property.
Of
housing.
housing.
Of housing.
Yep.
So we're going to drop home ownership and say housing?
Yes. Unless anybody doesn't agree?
No, I like that.
Okay.
More inclusive.
Okay, so I think then that is probably good for purpose and intent for now. And then with the definitions, the 2 that were originally in here, I think are good. I guess the question is, how many of the other ones from Plymouth or Provincetown do we want to add, or if any? Do we feel like we need to add more? Yes, Liz?
I would like to add the booking agent and emergency contact definitions.
Okay. I would like to, I don't really understand the partially exempt properties, so I was thinking that probably doesn't apply unless we want to consider it.
The partially exempt properties in the Plymouth one are the owner occupied?
Do we want to consider exempting, say somebody's renting just a room in a house? Do they need to apply, or?
I really, as I think about it, I was not comfortable with that, exempting that. I think
Be confusing?
home owner-occupied short-term rentals, are part of all this and should be regulated under here.
Okay. Everybody agree on that?
They have to be
Keep it in.
licensed, so they're included.
Okay.
Yeah.
So we're not going to move partially exempt into ours.
Right, nobody's exempt. And owner-occupied STR doesn't matter. We just discussed that, so that's out. Do we want to describe a public nuisance?
So,
Define it?
Is it described anywhere else?
It is.
but isn't it also a term of generally accepted meaning that doesn't have to be defined here?
I'm just going to jump in and say that I think that it would be unwise to define public nuisance specifically in the context of the short-term rental bylaw, because it's a generally applicable term that's already defined in case law, and which it would be
Right.
used in other places. I know Falmouth is considering, for example, a noise ordinance, right? So like you wouldn't want to also have a separate definition of noise in hiding in every bylaw. So
Yeah,
I
okay.
would suggest not putting that public nuisance definition in.
And we don't need provisional permit, because that's something we haven't really discussed.
We haven't done, right?
Yeah.
So could we just go back a little?
Sure.
Back to what Liz was talking about. I spent a bit of time of that, and I think,
Booking agent?
well, part of it was booking agent, but in my mind, I agree we need emergency contact person. I thought we should create a separate definition of operator who really has two functions, and that is they would be the license holder and unless it was delegated, and the person, essentially that the town keeps, they would also, in addition to the 24-hour, in addition to the, a listing agent, would be the 24-hour contact person. And so, to me, conceptually, I think the three parties we need to clearly identify are, again, our emergency contact person, owner, and operator.
Can I just say one thing about that? A lot of these homeowners have multiple platforms that they use and multiple booking agents that they use. So you might have it rented through 3 different real estate agencies. So how do you, and maybe an online platform as well.
But it would go with the property that's licensed. That would be part of the license, would list the emergency contact person. And if they wanted to have a different one for any different properties,
But
you
they
know.
might, the same property might get rented through several different booking agencies. So if they rent through my agency on one week, and next week it's rented through, let's say Donahue, who's that emergency contact person? Is it the owner, or is it the agency?
I think we need.
The
one-
license holder will have to choose who
Right.
the contact person is.
They would have one person?
I would
Yeah,
think.
we really need to, I think the town just needs to deal with one person, and, I think they got to figure that out.
But I'm just bringing it up because.
No, I got it. It's very
Yeah.
helpful.
So like, there's very little exclusivity with these owners. So there's not always like one point person. So like the people we have as exclusives, we have a QR code in the property, so they have a 24-hour who they contact if there's an issue. And we answer 24/7. But if they've rented to family or they've rented through VRBO or something else, we're not going to take that call.
Right, but when the neighbor calls the police,
Right.
and the police says, oh, I see that address, that's a short-term rental, here's the contact person.
So that's what we need to,
They're
I
gonna-
just want.
they're gonna call
I think
that.
They're going to have to clarify
Yeah.
on that for
Can we,
ones
can
that
we
are
just
managed.
encompass that all into emergency contact?
Won't the owner have to choose?
Jim, I'm sorry, what'd you say?
Just encompass it all into emergency contact,
They're-
and then it's the owner's responsibility to name the emergency contact that has to do all these things
Right.
regardless.
Yeah. I think it's, some people will be inclined to say, oh, call Foley Real Estate or Lamaki or whatever, but we may not be their rental agent for that
Well,
week or whatever.
Maybe you should be.
Maybe we make it exclusive.
But
I'm
yes,
just
Liz?
bringing it up so that
Yeah.
when that you know,
That will encourage exclusivity
yeah.
for
Or
convenience.
they can take the calls, which they won't want to do.
Right.
Yeah, I think that the way that we're moving forward, you know, based on the data, we're essentially saying those of you who are operating short-term rentals, you're going to be allowed to continue operating them. However, you might have to change your behavior in some small ways, and I think, Kara, this is a good example. I think then it becomes a matter of making sure that that's very clear, because one of the things that comes later in our discussion is that we're proposing that certain information needs to be also displayed in the unit, and one of those things is an emergency contact person. And so if an owner is using different groups for different nights, they will have to make a choice. Who are they posting there? And, you know, I would say that it's on that owner to make that decision. Is that going to be super fun for you, Kara? Not necessarily.
Well, no, because we can't, I mean, we technically can't be there if we don't have we can't be that contact person if it's not our,
If it's not realistic.
if it's not
Not your week.
our week.
You
We
might get
can't-
called
They
anyway.
have a lease with somebody else where we can't interfere with that. So that's why I'm saying, does the owner then become the contact person, which is what they don't want to do? So what you're saying makes sense. Maybe their behavior does change and they say, because of this, now we are going to go exclusively Airbnb or whatever. And that probably would make everyone's life easier anyway.
It would.
But I just thought I'd bring it up.
How do they keep track of them all? You know? It's crazy because
Yeah.
they must,
We don't
they
even
must
book-
make mistakes.
We don't book we don't book without contacting the owner first anymore. Like, I won't just allow bookings to come through because they don't keep us up on their calendars. They don't tell us if they're using it.
Right.
So we really have to contact them and say, is this week open, you know?
That's how you get double booked, different platforms, right?
Okay.
Okay.
I actually had, sorry.
Can be.
Go ahead.
I actually had a little note about the emergency contact when I was looking through the Plymouth definitions, right? And so in the booking agent, in the Plymouth definitions, they specify that the booking agent needs to live on Cape Cod within 30 miles of the property. But the emergency contact has no such restriction. And I actually would argue that it would be, from my perspective, more important that the emergency contact is a local individual as opposed to the booking agent.
That makes more sense.
That made more sense to me because if, you know, the police department is dealing with something or the health department is dealing with something and then the emergency contact lives in California, we are still in the same situation that we're in,
Right.
which is that we don't have someone who is driving distance from our town to come sort out a problem.
Well, the only thing I would say is in what we just discussed about having multiple, maybe the owner is the emergency contact, and then whoever their particular booking agent is technically their emergency contract. So it's kind of a, you know,
Yeah.
and again, that may take shape over time and change, but you're right. If, you know, we have to send somebody over. Sundays and Mondays are busy. Most people check in and they're like, they forget how to open a refrigerator, you know? So it's like, yeah. I don't think I have authority to tell you to talk, but go ahead.
Doug, you want to recognize? I appreciate it, though. So maybe what we need is language that this emergency contact person must be able to, I'm thinking out loud here, folks, but arrive at the property within, pick a number, 30 minutes, 20 minutes, whatever, and that will sort of define distance. But Liz, is that where you're going?
Yeah. I don't know if we should specify a time, but I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe
And let me just tell
like
you,
a reasonable amount of time, right?
What is the
an emergency is
contact?
kind of a loose term.
The emergency,
The person
So
the
that when they
town
won't
can
turn the
call.
music down at 2 a.m. and the police come, there's a responsible person that can come and deal with the situation at the house?
I don't know if
What
I would do a
that
time.
person do?
Noise complaint,
They would be in charge of the property and tell the people to get out or calm down or quiet down or whatever, or
One of the
I don't know
problems that
exactly what they would do, but somebody has to answer the phone.
A problem that was brought to us at the beginning of all of this by Scott was by the time the problem has occurred, the people who are responsible for creating the problem are gone. You don't really have a local person who can respond at the moment. They don't know who to call. They have to wait to call the town on Monday, and it's too late. So this, it seems to me, the important word here for the emergency contact is local. And although it doesn't specify what local means, it leaves it open for the health department that will administer this to decide how local is local. Depends on where the property is. It could be right near the Mashpee property line. No, but not somebody over the bridge, because you can't get here quickly from over there. So it will be local, and they're here.
Maybe it should be the operator or his representative, and that could be a.
Yeah, I think that makes sense.
I like that they're broken up because, again, a lot of these owners/operators don't live locally. And it's not so much for noise complaints, but if there was, somebody was locked out of the house, or Plymouth used the example, like, you know, they didn't take the trash out, and there's a pile of trash, and there's crows everywhere, like, we need somebody that's gonna be able to come and deal with it. That's the phone number we want.
Right.
You know, if we have to go and look at the license or call the health department or whoever is managing the actual physical license during business hours to talk to an owner, to get an owner's contact information, that's fine. But, you know, when we create the address and it says it's a short-term rental in the site file in our dispatch system, we want the site file to contain the emergency contact number. That person that is local that we can call and say, we have this problem now, can you help us mitigate it? That's the key. Whereas the booking agent, I think, to me, just kind of confuses the issue. You know, I don't, it's really I mean, maybe it's helpful to later on down the road, but, you know, like Kara brought up, like, there's so many different entities that are being used as booking agents, they might not be an efficient way to find a remedy to an immediate problem.
Right.
I think the emergency, and I do think we have to kind of clean up the language to make it clearer. But I think that's the key kind of person in this process.
I like the operator or designated
Yeah.
Or
Yeah.
the representative.
Okay. What do you think, Scott?
In the food safety world, we call it the person in charge, who's responsible. So you can make it very broad. There's got to be somebody responsible, and in the definitions of the person in charge, or whatever you call it, has to be the 24-hour access to them.
Yeah.
And keep it simple. Let them pick. I'm not worried about who they pick, and it can be, if they're switching off, like you said, the problem, it makes it a lot more problematic, is that they should be knowing who it is. Who is responsible? I call it the person in charge or whatever. And be very flexible on who they want to make the person in charge, but if we're calling them on a Sunday at 3 a.m. or a Tuesday at 4, they better react, or we'll yank their license. How's that? So, or do something of that effect. So you could write that in your regulations, just define what you need for person in charge is that person who has access, who can be called by a local authority to have answer questions if there's a problem. I mean, if you have somebody locked out and the police want that number, I mean, I guess you could call that a person in charge. Who's responsible for it all day long? That's it. Right? Would that make sense to leave it sort of vague? And define it?
I think that generally speaking, there's no particular reason that an owner shouldn't be able to designate a person, or for that matter, an entity. If your goal is just that you want to have somebody who can respond, it doesn't really matter if it's the owner, the owner's agent, somebody who the owner hires, or whoever the representative is. If the owner wants to hire 24/7 Property Management Incorporated, and they're going to have somebody show up, right, then that's really, what you care about is whether or not you can get somebody to solve the problem. Whatever problem it is you're imagining an owner will solve, though some of these, if somebody's making noise at 2 a.m., and owners might not be able to, they can't physically put them out on the street, right? So they can tell them to quiet down, like the police can. Like, you may not I defer to you on what falls, but you should do what he does. A person in charge or a
Yeah.
designated person or entity. I mean, it doesn't really matter who it is.
No, we agree,
So-
and
They
that's
want
what
to
we're
use an
saying.
800 number and forward to a real estate
Well,
agent.
there's a new business model if somebody wants to start a 24/7.
Yeah, so if I,
Do you have a person in charge for your regular rentals?
no, so it's just a registration and we do our best. It has to have a number posted and things like you already have, but that person isn't always, it
Accessible?
doesn't work. You make somebody a person in charge, and in our application in Permitize, we can define what that is. So, I mean, you can define it in your regulation, but we're going to say, who is the person we're going to call, or the police? Because I'm visioning, after just seeing this, that we would share this list with you every year, right? So I'm envisioning that you don't have Permitize, but we would somehow share the data. And the Permitize application can say whatever it wants on it. It can be very clear that you are the person that is responsible for it. So call it whatever you want. But I don't care who it is. They just need to be able to respond.
Right.
And I think it's your bylaw, you want to keep it big. I think we're on the same page. Eric?
So we could call it operator or designee, and then in parentheses, person in charge of short-term rental. And that would be also the emergency contact, right?
Yeah.
And
I
it
think
has
an
to be
emergency
local.
contact, you can just say owner, operator, or their designee.
Yeah.
Take out booking agent, because I
Yep.
think it just confuses it.
Designated
And then we can
representative.
work on what we want that definition.
Okay?
Yeah,
So owner, operator,
Are you comfortable making it local?
a person in charge of
Yeah,
short-term
I think,
rental.
I think it is, you know, the alarm bylaw isn't really enforced at all, but it has, they call, in the alarm bylaw, it's called caretaker. You have to have a designated caretaker that can respond. Again, it's only as good as them updating it, but like Scott said, if we can kind of get a way to amend it every year by taking the information on the permitting system and updating site files, then I think that would be a good way for us to do it.
With the chair.
Can you all not hear his podcast? I can hear his podcast sitting here.
Because you're,
that's a mother. Got the ears.
It's the ones that don't go in your ears?
Deaf, I can't even hear you.
Okay.
no, I can't.
I told him I could hear the podcast, so he had to go sit in the hallway.
Oh, no, we can't. It's just you being loud.
He can come out in the light where you can see him.
Right.
Okay, do we want to add anything else to this? Owner, operator, or designee, person in charge of short-term rental? Do they have to be local? And what's the definition of local?
Well, wouldn't you leave that up to the health department in each instance?
Just trying to think of how would we define local? Should we just say local and then leave it at that?
I mean, in this day and age, I don't necessarily, I mean, if you feel it's local, you can just say, yeah, I mean, we can define it. If you feel it needs to be local.
I think it's a mistake to leave out the
You're
booking
gonna-
agent because they're so involved.
they need to, they need to provide
Well, it could be a
something that can take
designee.
the trash out on a
Could be,
Tuesday.
this all says that. Any one of them could
I think
be.
that can be done.
It's all there. The only one you don't need, well, even that's, you can be one for yourself and a neighboring house. They're all useful.
So what would you keep in then? Keep the owner occupied?
I just
That's
add
a
local.
little different though, adjacent STR.
Yeah.
So-
Letting the same guy have two. I just add local to this.
And then that would be owner, operator, or designee.
So-
Could also be a booking agent or real estate or
It all says that.
business entity. So we'd add that language where it says booking agent, add all the stuff that it says.
Yeah, because they're definitely
Lives on
part of the
Cape Cod
process.
within 30 miles of the short-term rental property. That's all good.
Well, yeah, because booking agents clearly are very, very involved, so it's good to have them named.
So Doug,
So that would, the definition of booking agent could stay in there and could say, we'll just name booking agent.
I don't even know if you would say booking agent, and here's what, I don't want to get too like nitty-gritty on this, but we have, say, 5 rental agents. They book, but they don't handle the issues that come in.
You'd have to sort that out in your own
So
office.
it's not necessarily the booking agent, it could be the booking company or the booking platform or whatever that
But
is.
isn't that person in your office the agent for that particular one license?
They're licensed as a Realtor, but they're not the ones that handle, that we have a one-point person who deals with all the issues is not a rental agent.
But that's
It's
within
an-
the booking
It's
agent's
an administrative.
operation.
Doug?
Yes.
So I thought with the language we agreed of the operator is, or his designee, we don't need to
Need to have
specify
it, yeah.
that. And we're also going to allow this to be specified in regulations, so I don't think we need it here.
I think Charlotte's point was that the language in the booking agent description is helpful, because it says any person or entity that applies for a permit to license a short-term rental, facilitates reservations, collects payments, or as listed in the emergency contact for a short-term rental on behalf of or for an operator. The booking agent must live on Cape Cod within 30 miles of the short-term rental property.
That was for Plymouth.
That was Plymouth's definition of booking agent. But maybe we just borrow some of that language to say, you know, it must be a local person that meets the description and lives within 30 miles of the property.
Sure.
That sound okay?
30 miles would be over the bridge. That's
Could be.
practically out of touch.
Could be.
I do have to say, I go over the bridge all the time.
On a bike?
No, in a car. It is, depending on where you are in Falmouth, over the bridge is actually not that far away.
Right.
If you live in North Falmouth and you're on the 151 corridor, you're over the bridge in 15 minutes. Unless it's
commuting time.
between 3 and 5 in the afternoon on a given weekday.
Yeah, exactly.
And if you're obeying the speed limit.
And if what?
Obeying the speed limit.
Oh.
I won't say, I don't want to say anything with the officer present.
Yeah, Tom.
That's mostly unborn, you're all set.
So Doug, I thought, you know, again, as I thought about more from our last meeting, we agreed that all owners would be listed on the registration. And I think to me, the owners are fundamentally different. There's lots of overlap, but different from the operator. The operator is going to be the person on the license, as we talked about in the last 10 minutes. So if it's okay with you all, you're going to see it again, I'd like to take a whack at separating owner and operator. Because conceptually it makes a lot more sense.
Sometimes it's one and the same.
Absolutely.
You're thinking you're going to list more than one owner? I thought we all agreed we want one person.
No, we
Want one
want,
designee to be responsible, but then we want all owners listed so we can cross-reference to make sure how many
Right.
do they own.
So we can keep that 3 property,
Right.
so it's not somebody that, you know, they just
Right.
shift family members around a little bit to get a whole bunch of properties.
Yeah. Yes.
I would agree. I think that there's some value at this point in our discussion for maybe having an attempt at cleaning up the definitions, working in our discussion, and then having a fresh look.
Good idea.
And so,
I'll-
what is that, I'm sorry, what would that lead us to do right now?
Move on.
Well, so I think what I heard from Tom is he's expressing that he's going to have an attempt at incorporating people's feedback
Right.
and trying to get these definitions to a point where they're satisfying what we are all asking for.
Yeah.
I think I
And
got
then maybe
it.
wrap up that part of our discussion for this evening. Tom, I'm not sure if I'm correctly characterizing.
Yeah,
Separate and combine where
Your
needed.
intentions.
Kind of make
Yeah,
it
yeah.
cleaner for what we.
Yeah. Yeah, no, I got it,
Yeah.
Okay, you
Doug,
want to go through the last couple of definitions, just to see if they're relevant or not?
I did just want to go back, just, we've been kind of jumping back and forth, but we did have, in the old, it does still say, no owner shall be entitled to receive more than 1 license.
Yeah, that's
We'll
out.
change that to 3 licenses now.
Yeah, no, We're agreed on 3?
Yep.
Yeah, got
I
it.
think it was just, there was one or two that actually had 3
Yes.
that Liz found in the last one, so that's what we decided.
Yes,
Correct.
I think we have both of them. So there might be more.
Okay, and then partially exempt is out, right? We said that. Show sufficient
Provisional
park-
permit is out.
Looking at
Some,
these,
yeah, I think I am. My list looks different than yours. License for short-term rental. We want to keep that definition.
I mean, I think we have it in that section. I don't think we need another definition.
Okay?
where do
That's
we
in our,
have it?
that's in our original draft. License required to operate a short-term rental, no dwelling unit or part thereof may be offered or operated as a short-term rental within the town of Falmouth without first obtaining a license from the Board of Health. Yeah, that's, it covers it. License fees not yet filled in, we'll decide that later, or somebody will. Trash and recycling plan, I noticed that parking plan showing no more than 1 parking spot. Shouldn't it be no less than 1 parking spot?
Where,
Yeah.
I'm lost now, Tom,
So
sorry.
parking spots.
Sorry, I'm on the, I'm
Okay.
looking at the original Falmouth
Okay.
short-term bylaw. And it said, parking plan showing no more than 1 parking spot per bedroom. But,
Yeah, no
what's
less.
the, yeah, no less than,
Got
I
it.
think,
Because that could be 0.
Good
for our
catch.
contract.
Doug, we, in my attempt to find that, we passed something I wanted to ask
Okay.
folks about. I had brought it up previously. So in the registration and operational procedures, the term of the license, right, licenses shall be issued annually and shall expire on, we have a blank there. I mentioned, I think, last meeting about the idea of allowing for 2-year licenses. And,
Might be a little easier to police.
and then, yeah, the podcast is very funny.
I guess so.
Anyone needs a good kid science podcast, it's called Wow in the World.
Okay.
So, and you know, an initial year, right, everyone is 1 year, but those licenses ending in an odd number, you're gonna have a 1 year this time, and then your next year you start your 2 year, and anyone ending in an even, you start initially with a 2 year. So ultimately, after that time, you have half the number of applications coming through the health department's workload in any given year.
See how it works.
Also, I would suggest that we don't do a annual renewal date like your, registry or whatever, but it could be a rolling registration. So whatever time of year you decide to,
Do you do
create
it
it.
again that same next
yeah,
year?
it comes up at the same time.
Oh.
Be easier on the
What do you-
software
what do
though,
you-
just to make it,
I think
yeah.
we could figure that out internally. I can send any date I want. So I don't know if that would be more beneficial to have them rolling in every day versus calendar.
Although if it
But I think
fell in
looking at
August.
bylaw personally, let us determine as a matter of course how it's done.
Okay.
But it's a problem if it falls like in August, and it's in the middle of the rental season, and they don't renew it, and they have all their rentals already booked for,
Right.
So the permitizer will pick up on anybody who's expired after X number of days. We just set it 30 days, 10 days, whatever. So it'll auto do that for us.
So Scott, just for the minutes, I just heard you express, like, essentially you're saying it might be better to allow the Board of Health regulations to set a date for that.
It doesn't need to be in the regulations whether it's a calendar or not, just say annually or biannually. And let
Okay.
us figure out whether the expiration date's June 30th or January 1st.
I like the biannually idea because it's less
I
cumbersome.
do too. So that would change the fee structure as well.
Yeah, and make more palatable for people because it's just one more thing to do and everybody's busy, so. Okay. But do we all agree on the biannual license?
Yeah, I think with Liz's idea that you have sort of a rolling termination period the first round, so you get half 1 year and then half the following year.
Yeah, and we'll let Scott figure that part out. We'll just call it a biannual.
Okay. But we'd leave it, expires from the, 2 years from the date of approval? Or Scott, remind me what you were saying, when the expiration would be?
Doesn't matter. I'd have to talk to staff on this, but
Yeah.
to roll it or to have a hard date.
So if we just said, yeah,
Everything we do now is hard date.
Yeah.
Generally, it's December 31st, then your term expires. But septic permits have 2 years from the date of issuance. So, but most of our rolling annual permits, like restaurants, is an annual, it expires. We moved it to the 15th, because select board meeting at the time, select board's office to get the liquor licenses figured out. So there's a hard date of when, I think it's December 15th. So we can do a hard date, I'd have to ask for this, I'd rather do a hard date or a rolling date.
We can leave that unresolved.
You.
I forgot.
It's okay. I'm sure it'll pick you up there.
Scott, it's easy for me to leave that as an open question.
I guess at the end of the year would be better because off-season's easier for them to deal
I'm
with.
just questioning why the
If
bylaw even needs to say when it
Yeah.
has to be done.
just say it's biannual and you
Yeah.
figure out when you issue them
That's
and
what I
when
was
you.
trying to get, yeah, just say on a biannual basis. You should agree whether you need it annually or not.
Because we
Right.
do police it, so like January 1st, we send out to all the owners, like, it's time, and it gives us time to police it because we have them send us a copy.
Okay,
Yeah.
So we're like a second policing unit, I guess. But it's harder for us to do that in season.
what was that, Charlotte, you were just showing me?
There was more than, if we skip to the very next section, we might miss the exclusions and ineligible properties that are in the definitions.
Okay. I don't see, you want to talk about that? I don't see it.
Oh, I don't know where you want to put them. I just hope that they won't be lost. Just because they were the next listed. Prohibited activities and properties.
Okay,
We did pass that, and I had an
Just
idea
acting
about
on
that.
Liz's recommendation that we move along.
Yep.
And wait and see what Tom comes up with for definitions,
okay,
and then move along. And next would be, I think, prohibited activities and properties.
okay.
Um,
Commercial events, affordable
No,
housing units, nuisance, short-term rental created as a result of disruption. Yes, Liz?
I had an idea about the prohibited activities section.
Okay,
And the first one there specifies commercial events. A short-term rental property should not be used for a commercial event during its occupancy. Commercial events include these things or gatherings for direct or indirect compensation. I was wondering if it may be more effective, and I could be completely wrong, but restricting and using language that actually restricts events based on the number of attendees rather than the type of event. Thinking about like, right, how do loopholes work? And, well, it wasn't commercial because no money changed hands, but there were still 100 people at this house, right? It was a family cookout, big
Right.
family reunion type thing, right? Based on my incredibly literal reading of this text, my 100-person family reunion at my short-term rental seems like it's allowed, since I didn't compensate my family directly or indirectly for that event. But if I'm the neighbors of that unit, I would find that to be incredibly disruptive. And so I was wondering if, what others thought about potentially thinking about that in terms of less the nature of the event and more of the number of individuals attending the event.
Makes sense.
so there should be no more than like twice the number of permitted people, or just the number that's already there? So the number of people would be the number of bedrooms times 2, and it limits it to, but then if they go to the restaurant, they meet another couple, and they want to invite them back for a drink, I mean, they're
Right.
being kind of
Restrictive, yeah.
a little too restrictive.
That's why I wanted to bring it up as a discussion item to see what others felt about that.
Okay,
So Doug, in the section on prohibitions, On page 2 of my issues list, I raised a lot of these issues, and maybe this is, Liz, where you're getting at, but striking the word commercial. And just talk more broadly about events. And in particular, I think we're not concerned just about weddings, but about, wedding receptions and other parties. And so I have about 4 bullet points here that, I think get to what Liz is talking about and a little bit more. Does everyone see where this is on page 2, most of the way down?
Yep.
Yeah.
I think there's a difference too between an event that the owner knows about and an event that the owner doesn't know about. So
Right.
somebody's renting your property and they're like, you don't know that they're going to bring 50 of their closest family members over for a party.
Exactly. I had that happen when a house that I sold, I used to have this house that was a pretty good-sized house on Airbnb, and I rented it to 4 girls that wanted to have a college reunion.
Right.
And what she didn't say was that they were bringing their husbands and kids and all their family. They were from the Boston area, so on Saturday, they had this big party.
Come party.
The room, the yard was filled with people, and my neighbor called me and said, "Douglas, it looks like you've rented to a small country. What have you done?" So I had to come over and calm them down and straighten it out, and,
Yeah.
wasn't too good.
It was that kind of situation that led to the Linfield case, that led to the
Yeah.
Supreme Court saying these are illegal.
Right.
The fellow who was running a college reunion in his big house, and over 100 people turned up, and one of them shot someone.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay, well,
So Doug,
it takes a while to get good at learning to read between the lines when you want to rent.
I appreciate your thought about what the owner knows about, but, I think our job is, what do we want to restrict? And I think when I'm hearing about large parties, reunions, and so my first cut point was maybe just eliminating the word commercial and making this events, and trying to make sure the definition covered some of the things I talked about.
I would like to see commercial stay, but then maybe a separate paragraph also included is, large gatherings, some
Well-
different language for the other non-commercial things that are prohibited.
Could you just take this, following on what you've both said, this first one, it defines commercial events and so forth, and then the next would be commercial and non-commercial events include blah, 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 blah,
Right, okay, commercial and non-commercial,
and
that's right.
non-commercial events.
Could it be just commercial and other events?
Well, I guess it could.
It means the same thing.
Yeah, I guess that's fine.
But are we on board that we're talking about large parties and,
Yeah, because if you intercept where, on the second time it mentions commercial, and other events include luncheons, banquets, parties, weddings, meetings, charitable fundraising, commercial, or, you don't have to keep saying commercial, or advertising activities, or other gatherings, and it doesn't have to be for direct or indirect
Right.
compensation. We'll take that last,
Yeah.
other gatherings, period.
It's so expensive now to hire an event venue for your wedding. There's a great temptation to just hire somebody else's house and make a mess there.
Yeah.
so would people be comfortable if we said large parties, or do you want to define it, Liz?
I think the language in here is good, is we just strike the last part, for direct or indirect compensation.
Well, can I add reunions?
Yeah, you can add reunions.
Good idea.
Okay, Where are we at now? We're all over the
We've got
place.
more prohibited properties.
Oh, yeah,
I'm sorry,
prohibited short-term rentals.
Doug, just sort of going back, again, working off my list. Under, so it's page 1, short-term rental definitions. This can go other places than under the definition, but someone I thought raised a good point, whether we want to exempt, de minimis rentals, and I don't know if we talked about people rent for less than a total of a week or 2 weeks a year, that they not get swept into that. And someone raised it, I thought it was an interesting idea. I want to make sure we think about that. I mean, so,
Would it belong here under prohibited activities and properties? Not yet.
No.
well, no, I think this is a full definitional exemption that, at least the way the person raised it, it was from the Finance Committee.
Right, but we're not on that part. We're still doing the prohibited.
Right, but yeah, I was going back because we missed a
Oh,
point.
okay.
This is under definitions of short-term rentals.
All right.
So what do people think of allowing de minimis use? And we can pick a number, and, if they rent for under 2 weeks a year, they don't come within the,
That's what the state does. They have a 14-day exemption.
Yeah, so you're already exempt. If it's 14 days or less, you don't have to file with the state.
well, then we can,
14
But
days, a
but unless they want to
year.
get on the Airbnb, then they do have to file, or else they can't get listed.
You mean with the state? You still have to have a certain number with the state, but the 14-day exemption allows you not to have to charge taxes. And that has to be, that 14-day exemption has to be filed by December 15th, the year prior to renting. So you can't make it retro, like, oh, I only rented 14 days this year. It has to be filed with the state, and they say, okay, so you're not going to rent for any more than 14 days in one calendar year. And then you're exempt from state and local taxes.
Okay.
so it just,
And so if they fall under that state exemption, then we can exempt them as well. Yes?
And it sounds like that doesn't need to be specified in here.
it should be.
It
Because that's a different purpose
Okay.
than, they just don't come under this regulation.
Okay.
Okay, that sounds fair. Okay, is that it then for the old stuff?
Is moving on in affordable housing.
Well,
and
Doug,
exclusions.
I'm sorry, I was trying to follow my list here, and one of the things was that, it's kind of wordsmithing, but I think it's important, and that is the I'm sorry, bear with me, folks.
Is it still in definitions?
No, I thought you were beyond that. No, it
Well, we
isn't.
were, but we went back to it.
Okay.
I'm just asking you where we're headed.
So, bear with me, sorry. Should we, in the license required to operate a short-term rental in A, should we just be clear that the license actually not just needs to be submitted and reviewed, but accepted by the town? I was sort of looking for that definity, that it just says, upon submission and review of a complete application. I mean, I think our thought is,
Well, if it's issued, it's accepted, right?
Yeah.
no, but it doesn't say issued.
Yeah,
Well, the
licenses
next
may
letter-
be issued.
Obtaining a license from the Board of Health.
And then B is term of the license shall be issued annually and shall expire. Minimum-
Okay, okay.
Yeah. If you don't have the license, you're not approved. All right, back to prohibited activities, because Charlotte was saying that we keep the language about affordable housing. Of course, that's almost goes without saying, but it should be said.
Right, and then there's one that was included in our old one, on nuisance, sort of a broad brush. No short-term rental shall create or result in a disruption of peace, tranquility, safety, immediate residential neighborhood, and so forth.
Yeah, that's
Where
good.
is this that she's reading?
Then the ones that Plymouth, if we keep that, if the ones that Plymouth suggested, do we want to think about
Activities and properties.
excluding ineligible properties? At our last meeting, we looked at it briefly, and boats was added to the list, mobile homes, multifamily residence, and so forth. And then, so they're prohibited, they're excluded properties, or ineligible properties, whichever.
Where would that fit within the structure that we're working? So Charlotte, are you thinking
Prohibited.
that would be under this prohibited?
Yeah.
Activities and properties, I think is where we were.
Plymouth called it ineligible properties, but yeah, I think of it. Can show sufficient parking. So they list exemptions and ineligible properties together, which is a little weird. Ineligible properties, Plymouth, they say any property that's subsidized in any way by town, state, or federal or private monies or regulations, e.g. any multifamily or single-family that is built for or contains affordable housing units or is an affordable housing unit, any Habitat for Humanity dwelling, any unit that is in the town lottery program for affordable housing, any mobile home, manufactured housing, any dwelling that is not on a permanent foundation, such as a shed or a tent. Town registered camps are not included in this regulation, which we can strike that because we don't have town registered camps, do we? I don't think so.
We've got,
Home camps?
we have mobile home camps, yeah. On Thomas Landers Road, there's one.
Well, those are
That's a
campground.
private-
It's a campground. You can't live there
All the
year-round.
houses are private all over town.
No, but I think a town registered camp, you're referring to like if the town of Falmouth was operating.
No, just camps. I think it meant, but we could take it any which way we want.
Campers, RVs, or buses that are stationary and located on a driveway are also ineligible. No long-term rentals to short-term rentals are allowed in multifamily apartments through eviction of long-term rental tenants.
And I heard from someone that people with boats at
Yeah.
anchor are renting
Yeah.
them out as short-term rentals.
I added the boats one
Yeah.
last time.
Yeah. Boats, okay.
Do we want to prohibit that? What would be the rationale?
I don't know. Sounds kind of fun.
It does.
So.
Not going to hurt the affordable housing
it-
market.
That's for sure.
I think it,
But doesn't a boat have another, it's not,
You can't really, how can you really register?
like, I know
it?
if you have, if, like, in order to, like, and this is probably different, but in order to do charters on a boat, you have to have a captain's license, you have to have a certain type of license to do.
Well, these are just boats at anchor.
Well, you're
that you
supposed
just
to
stay on a
Anchor,
houseboat.
on
yeah.
dock, I
Like
can
on a
understand, on
mooring.
anchor is a
On
little
mooring.
different.
yeah, but-
People
Like
do
somebody
it
builds a
anyway.
structure, puts it on a mooring, and then
Yeah,
it kind of falls through the
Like, is
cracks.
boat
so
real
it's-
property?
yeah.
Right.
I thought it's sort of the larger issue that these aren't allowed anyway, and, you know, I thought I can look, but we've talked about, I think the regulation is clear, we're regulating dwelling units.
Yeah.
And
Those are dwelling
so,
units for some people. People dwell in mobile homes.
but they're not registered, or what's the right word, approved dwelling units, they're just,
Well, I think they are, actually. They're certainly sold as approved dwelling units, and I know people who live on their boat.
Do we want to
you know, I
police
think
that?
we're drifting in an area,
Yeah.
I'm just not comfortable there. Harbor master regulations and,
Drifting.
Oh, sorry. Oh, sorry, guys.
I thought that was very intentional.
No.
We're adrift. What does everybody think about that?
If we want to
What do you
get into
think, Liz?
boats.
Yeah, I would say for our purposes, if someone is wanting to rent their boat, I don't know if that's really falling under our purview when I consider it from a dwelling unit perspective, although like Charlotte, I also know people who live on their boat for, the entire summer
Yeah.
and their house is rented to other individuals. I know a family that does that, for example. It feels a little,
Could we keep it in the confines of you don't register your boat with the state for a C number to pay taxes? Your short-term rental tax has to be paid through the state by having a certificate number with the state, and I don't think you can do that with a boat.
They'd probably take the money if you
They probably will.
Yeah, but it never happens.
It says residential address, so when you go to Mass Tax Connect to register your property,
You just put in your house
and
address.
eventually they're not, you can still get away with not registering and paying with a social security number, but eventually you're not gonna be able to, so that would mean they weren't collecting taxes. So then you're, that's a whole nother layer.
Okay.
I think the reasoning behind my suggestion was because if you're not gonna comply, or you're gonna try to skirt these regulations by putting a mobile home in your driveway and trying to list that as,
Right.
that, what's not to say somebody's not gonna build a houseboat and put it on a mooring and not register it with the state, and then it gives us, the town, some ability to say, you're running an STR, you can't do it.
Right.
You need to stop. And we can do it under this regulation. The waterways regulations don't give us a lot of teeth to stop houseboats. That's why there's houseboats. So if they are clearly operating it as a commercial rental, I think that just gives a little bit more teeth so that we are controlling. Because if they just fall outside it and now they go out there and they're like, oh, it's a houseboat, it's not an STR. We don't have to comply with these nuisance ordinances. We don't have to comply with this, this part of it. I think the kind of the ineligible properties, I think it just, those little fringe things that people can do to try to skirt the bylaw, it's just trying to say, it specifically says you can't do that in this regulation. So we can go and say, you can't do it according to our rental bylaw.
No pirates.
Yeah.
So you'd leave it in?
Yeah, I like all these, because I.
You want boats
I
to
do.
be an ineligible property.
Yeah, yep. Just like, the campers and the RVs, like it says,
Yeah.
stuff like that. Because I do think that is a path for people to kind of try to skirt that. If we don't put it in there and it's not covered, then it's not an STR, look at your bylaw, what does it say? And then we're amending the bylaw down the
Yeah,
road.
right.
I
Okay.
think- I think we want to focus the definition into the thing that we want to regulate. By excluding those other ones, we're keeping our focus on what we want to regulate.
I guess I can agree with that.
Right.
Ineligible boats. Boats and houseboats.
So, I have on the top of page 2, I put it under other, but I didn't.
On your page too, or?
Yeah, my page 2, I didn't know where to put it, but Plymouth had requirements, and I like the idea that the owner has to receive certain information. And my list here is just from Plymouth's bylaw. I think we don't need this specificity. We can just say it in regulations, but I think providing the owner with certain information is a really
Renter,
good.
right?
I'm sorry?
Providing the renter with.
Renter, I'm sorry, yeah, sorry.
Yeah.
Isn't that the next section that comes up in the bylaw, and we were gonna go by the old bylaw for our order?
I didn't know where this fit in, Charlotte, so. I put it here.
Okay, well, let's keep on going in this, and when you see where you think it goes, we'll get back to it. Ownership of short-term rentals, compliance, let's see, where are we now?
Would
Yes, Liz?
with that information, because I agree with Tom that I think that the information listed in that bylaw is very important information to provide to a renter. Would that fall in the structure of our bylaw, if I'm thinking about our various sections, would that fall into our registration and operational procedures section?
It does,
I
and that
think
comes
so.
up next.
Okay.
I'm sorry, so Liz, you're suggesting go where?
In the registration and operational procedures section, to me, that feels like the most appropriate section from the
It is.
ones that are listed.
It was our next section.
So that's section 3, license required to operate?
Yes.
Okay.
So it would be, in addition to what's here, beyond the application, you know, the owner would be required
Yes.
to
Yeah.
post the following information in a conspicuous place within the unit.
Right.
And then we could make
Got
a
it.
list.
And that could be a standard thing that could be on the town's website that they could print and just put on the refrigerator.
And the other piece to that, Plymouth had a self-attestation requirement. Did we like that?
Well, that's pretty much
We're
how.
going to go through all of these so we can see where we are. We're going to hop around.
Yeah, let's just keep going in through the bylaw itself,
Yeah.
and then see, because we keep bouncing around here. Oh, you think that goes in here as well, this
Yeah.
attestation?
Yeah, it's part of the operational procedures.
Minimum license application requirements. Applicants shall include a minimum of the following information. That's what we had already.
But this is what would be provided to the tenant.
Yeah, there would be another part, to be an operational procedure, you have to post following information.
Yeah, we agreed to
Yeah,
that.
yeah.
That will go in the bottom after
Yeah.
the other stuff.
But Doug, I'm sorry to push. Do we also want what Plymouth did of a self-attestation affidavit?
Yes,
My reading of that, I think that section is maybe more appropriate falling into our inspection section?
No,
Or am I misunderstanding your?
I like it, and I think it fits well in 3. It's not really an inspection issue.
I'm trying to find it.
Tom, is it referenced in the Plymouth bylaw in any section other than, the only place I found it referenced is in the absence of a properly completed self-attestation form, this is what happens. If it's referenced in a different location, I've missed that.
And I don't remember. Maybe you could shoot that to me where it is in the Plymouth bylaw.
Okay.
Because I just was taking notes from the discussion without,
Yeah.
Well, that's what we use in, like, when you have a special permit, you have to self-attest each year that you're still operating your special permit as the way you are agreed to. Is that what you're referring to?
it's a little different, but it's still a good point that it could easily be covered, that and I can work something up, but
I don't know that we need it, because if they're complying with all the other aspects of the the
But
license.
so Doug, the point I wanted to make is, I can draft this up pretty easily, but any renewal of the application shall specify ongoing compliance with these regulations. And that would cover that here, and a larger point. See what I'm saying?
Yeah, I guess that wouldn't hurt.
Tom, I found it in the notes, and I agree that I think it almost needs to appear, right? So their self-attestation form from Plymouth is asking information, essentially for the information that's listed here as what must be included in a license. Right, they're saying, you know, they need to provide certain information, and then if they don't, this is what happens.
Oh, I see. They have to attest that they have posted that stuff.
Yes.
Yeah, I guess we should require that if they're going to have to take responsibility for having posted it. Because, you know, those things could, if they don't do a good job of, like, putting it up in a place where it's not going to get destroyed, it might not last through the summer.
Okay. Got that part.
Fire extinguisher locations. That'll remind everyone to get a fire extinguisher. And that the smoke alarms work.
I'm sorry, Doug?
Nothing, I was just reading through this stuff. Safety.
So Doug, on inspections, there's the bottom of my page 2, but I raised it at the last meeting in May. I think one of you, or one of our staff, said it may be a legal issue, but that the owner be required in his lease with the tenant for the occupant to grant immediate inspection access.
In what sense? What would provoke that?
I'm sorry?
In what instance would they need?
A complaint?
Okay, but I think that should be spelled out too, because if, you know, the owner shows up and says, I just want to see how you're taking care of the property, that's
Kind of an invasion of
Yeah.
privacy. Yeah, so it would have to be spurred by a complaint.
Got it. Yep.
Violations. Are we done with inspection? Is that all good otherwise? How we just added that? Violations. The Board of Health may cause an investigation into complaints of violations of this bylaw and any rules or regulations promulgated hereunder.
I didn't have any change. I had a thought on non-criminal disposition, civil penalties. I don't want to rush things.
No, we're there.
So I think we should specify that so I'm now on the top of page 3, but that we should specify that any violation of any provision of this bylaw shall be considered a daily offense. We just have that each day of a violation. And I think it's really sort of defining what a violation is, and that's a violation of any provision of this bylaw. See where I'm going?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, because it's got to be cured quickly or else it's going to get expensive.
Yeah.
I like that term.
Yeah.
It's going to get expensive.
I'm sorry?
She said she likes that part where it's going to get
It's going to get
expensive.
expensive.
No, but that's the whole point.
I know.
That's the whole point of putting this in here.
Yeah. But I think that's pretty clear.
I'd be fine with adding that. Anybody else?
No problem.
Agreed.
It's fine by me.
Okay. Yeah, that sounds good. Let's add that. Non-criminal disposition, an owner who violates any provision of this law or regulation promulgated hereunder may be subject to a civil fine. Oh, that's probably where that language would come in with the
Right, it's
the
already here.
daily fine.
Yeah, it would be editing the last sentence of each of those.
What is this? I'm not sure.
And it already says that language in this in the non-criminal disposition.
Yeah, it's already here.
It already says it. Each day a violation occurs will be a
Oh,
separate
okay.
offense. Okay,
And that was probably written by Maura
right.
when she did this,
Yep.
which probably,
Okay.
Yeah, okay, yeah.
So
I
we've got
I'd
that.
missed that, thanks.
Okay. In accordance with general laws, town may assess a civil penalty not to exceed $5,000 for any violation of this bylaw or regulation issued hereunder. That should get their attention. Authority of the Board of Health, and that's where we have that question again, the Board of Health or Health Department. I think if we keep using Board of Health and they specifically sent us a letter that they don't want to be doing this, that could be problematic for us somehow.
So make it a health department.
Or health agent?
I think that's
Should we
what
say?
Eric
The
said he was
lawyers in the
gonna have
town
a-
ought to figure
yeah.
that out.
Yeah, just put a question mark on that and say
Yeah.
Board of Health, Health
Okay, got it.
Health Department or Health Agent.
Yep.
And leave that to them. And severability, any provision in this section shall be held to be invalid by a court or competent jurisdiction. Then such provision shall be considered separately and apart from the remaining provisions, which shall remain in full force and effect. Okay.
So Doug, effective date, isn't this realistically January 1, 2027? It's going to town meeting April of 2026,
Hopefully, yeah.
but, you know, contracts have been issued for that rental period.
Yeah.
You know,
Yeah, that sounds realistic. But we'd probably leave it blank for now until we get it approved.
okay. Yeah,
It'd
do
say
you mind if I
draft
put in
form.
brackets?
I guess it would be okay to put it in there as a draft, and then just,
Yeah, let's do that. I think, you know, we're going to send this out, and I think we should message to people, there's going to be a period of time to get into compliance. And, you know, when we go to April town meeting, we don't want questions, well, I've got a rental, you know, for this
Yep.
year.
okay. That was pretty good. Good job of getting through that. And I put also on the agenda that we would talk about public hearings, but I don't think we're going to nail down any dates. But the first public hearing, I guess, would be presenting this to the select board.
Let's see it first.
Right. I'm just getting a general
Yeah.
idea about the time frame. We probably won't get on the select board agenda for at least another month or two, who knows how long. Takes a while to fold things in. And then town meeting's gonna be November 17th, so that might clash with getting it on, so maybe it'll be after town meeting, actually, that it gets on the select board.
Wouldn't it be more likely to be holding public meetings, hearings on this in January in the new year in advance of the April town meeting?
Yep.
When's the
Yeah.
deadline for April town meeting, the warrant?
I'd have to look that up, if it's August for November.
January to late January.
Yeah, that sounds right.
Late January?
Mid to late.
Yeah. So we'll have to have a public hearing right after the select board meeting, maybe. Unfortunately, it gets near Christmas, but we'll see how it goes. But at least we got a general idea of what our time frame is.
So Doug, just, you know, query whether the select board would appreciate reviewing, sorry, a draft after any input from the public hearing, because we may want to go back and add something, and then we deliver a close to finished product to the select board.
That's actually probably a good idea. We should get our draft together and then have a public hearing before we present it. That's a good one. Everybody like that idea? We can have that sooner. Okay, good. What do you think, Jed? Anything from you?
Surely this group is going to review the draft before it goes any further. We haven't
Right.
even seen it.
Yeah,
And we've worked off 3 documents tonight, so it's confused.
yep.
I feel a little,
Right.
wait, which one was I
I know, we got a lot
looking at?
of
And-
papers piled up. Hopefully
Yeah.
soon we can toss them all.
And
Oh,
in advance, I beg your forgiveness if my notes are imperfect, I've missed something, I'm going to give it my best shot, but
That's fine.
Yeah, it's appreciated. And then
I think it'll be helpful.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yes.
it will be.
Yeah, kind of boil everything into one document.
Yep, sounds good. How about, can we get approval of those awesome minutes at Liz?
And Eric, I hope it's helpful to you guys.
I will second.
I move we approve Liz's minutes. They were great.
Is there a second?
Second.
All in favor? Aye. Thank you very much, Liz.
Yeah.
Who was that second? Sorry.
Did that.
And how you type it.
Um,
Yeah,
But you
listen.
hear, you got so much information.
Wait, we haven't, wait, we're not done.
Oh, well,
Sorry.
Sorry.
Focus, everybody.
Schedule our next meeting.
We're almost there. We need to schedule our next meeting.
I
and
thought
we
it
need
was going to be October 8th, but the room is booked for that, and downstairs is also booked.
I'm
We-
gone for the month of October.
Okay,
You can go ahead, but I'm gone.
all right. And when you back?
November 1st.
Okay.
Well, is there any way, do we have procedures to allow Charlotte to participate by phone? Because I don't think we can afford a month.
I think all committees can do that. Would you be able to call? We could email you whatever the draft looks
Yeah, I'll
like,
be
and then you
reading my
could comment.
emails wherever. If I get a draft, that'd be great. I'll be in Bulgaria. I don't even know what the drafts are like there.
Oh, I'm very jealous, Charlotte.
Oh, boy. Wow.
So Charlotte, whatever it's worth, my father knew Eastern Europe really well, and I never did it. I didn't listen to much my father said, but he always pressed me and urged me to go to Sofia. So I think it's supposed to be
Photographs.
just fabulous.
Yeah.
Can I propose?
Carry your bags?
Can I propose October, so you said the 8th is booked.
Yeah.
I can't do the 15th because that's Meet the Teacher night, so I have to be over at Lawrence
Okay.
for that whole evening. If we're sticking with Wednesdays, so maybe
Okay.
Wednesday, the 22nd is the next.
I'll try for that. Sound good to everybody? Okay.
Okay. 22nd, 6 PM, Select Board. Okay. All right, I make a
The copy of the draft, I can just comment on the draft.
Right.
motion to adjourn.
Second.
Second.
Thanks,
All in favor?
Charlotte.
Aye.
Aye.
Aye, aye.